Welcome to the InfoMullet YouTube channel. If you enjoy this content, please like or share. And if you'd like to support the InfoMullet by becoming a mulleteer, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. Barry is asking, what are good ways of combating misinformation about vaccines? I see way too many memes on social media about people making jokes about how the vaccine will turn them into some kind of monster. Bonky, the emotional support donkey here, has a barbed wire bat and a machete. So, he's got his methods. But the trick with misinformation, this gets into the other work I do, which is counter-radicalization. So a little bit of a topic shift here. I'm coming at this now less from a science perspective than I am from a violence and instability, which is actually my day job. So when you're talking about counter-radicalization, the absolute best method to combat misinformation is not to be outside. When we think about a narrative framework, so Ms. Falkenberry, think about a narrative framework. A person who believes that the vaccines are bad has a narrative framework of the world, and that exists as a set of views, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're not talking objective truth. Their views are the vaccine will turn me into a mutant, I'll grow a third eye, and that's bad for many reasons we know. I'll grow tentacles, all these things that they, whatever it is they have, that's their narrative framework. That is a perspective framework. If you are far away from that narrative framework and you come in to attack them, what the brain does is it rationalizes the defense. When the brain has a belief, it tends to rationalize that belief and defend it as a cognitive bias. So yes, you can come at it with facts, and yes, you can come at it with logic, but you can't rationally explain to someone who adopted an irrational belief and get them out. However, there are rational responses to irrational beliefs, and the rational response is understanding they're in this narrative framework, and that means using asymmetric communication tactics, which I talk about a lot in other videos and have links up, to get inside their narrative framework and turn that against them. And the number one way you can do it, it's going to be very difficult for you, Ms. Falkenberry, because you're a scientist, is it's called induced hair splitting. And that means if you have one person who's an anti-vaxxer with a framework that's far away from where you are, full of misinformation, you need to find a credible voice that is within their narrative framework, someone they believe, they listen to, they understand, they take as credible, and have that person from inside the narrative framework then counter the misinformation, because you can't do it from outside the narrative framework. This is where it's really tricky. If you want to do this as a person, it's like putting on a hazmat suit, wading into their framework and living inside their framework and explaining it from within their framework. It's very difficult for an outsider to do. It takes a lot of training and a lot of effort. We spend entire defense budgets trying to do this when it comes to Salafi Takfiri terrorism and right-wing terrorism and left-wing extremism and all this stuff. It's very difficult to do from an outsider, but if you can find insiders who are close to that anti-vaxxer but not quite as much as them, you give them the message and the ability, they communicate the message, and they create a change from within. Now, induced hair splitting is the more radical someone is, the more fundamentalist they are. And induced hair splitting is you can create fragmentation within groups by showing the small variations in belief. If you introduce very small information to a fundamentalist, they're gonna break apart. So you can begin to segment those anti-vaccine groups into different segments that are disagreeing with each other, and then target the ones with a close by credible voice. And yes, de-radicalizing someone who is radicalized, and in this case I say radicalized as a belief like the moon is made out of green cheese or vaccines are bad. That sort of radical belief is very, very difficult and takes a lot of tricks and tactics. So thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to follow the InfoMullet, visit us on Facebook or Twitter. And if you'd like notifications when we post new video content, click on the red subscribe button below the video. If you've ever wanted to become a mulleteer and support the InfoMullet, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate the support.